That's my friend. So this session is about the whiteboard feature in Zoom, annotating and polling. And you can thank the people who were in this morning's session for being the guinea pigs, because it's the first time I've taught this class. And we worked a few bugs out because I don't use the whiteboard feature ever in the meetings I'm in, because I'm meeting with other staff members. As teachers, you definitely may be interested in the whiteboard and the annotation features, but I think we've all been involved with the polling a little bit. So I will state right up front, I might have bit off a little too much here with this one, trying to fit it all into 30 minutes. We went 40 minutes in the last one. If you need to go, go. I won't take offense to it. Same as the other Zoom sessions. If you've been in the others, you've heard me say this, but this time does count for self-directed or technology PD. That's not been loaded into Skyward for you yet. It will be in, I've got word today. It's going to be loaded into Skyward middle to late September. And so when it goes into your Skyward accounts, at that time, you can put this time in there. So just record this, write it down, the course name, the date, and the amount of time that we spend here. Christy, you look like you're about to ask a question. I can see it.
I will express the frustration of everyone else in the district with what you just said. That's all.
I have also expressed that frustration. Okay. So the fiscal, just so you know, the fiscal year of the school district resets on September 1. So we couldn't even put anything into there until September 1. And then there's, I guess, a whole bunch of payroll things that are going on from the previous fiscal year that get in the way of getting that stuff in. So I have been pressing and indicating that teachers, you're not the first, teachers have been all over me saying, I need to be able to put my time in. And I am pushing as hard as I can for that to be available as quickly as possible. So that's the word I got today. What I had heard last was beginning of October. So it's a move in the right direction. So we can at least be thankful for that. All right. So beyond that, I'll be doing some today in screen sharing, and we'll be doing another part where you just get to play with the whiteboard and kind of experience it from a student side. So let's just jump in. If you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask. If you want to drop them in the chat, I'll do my best to keep an eye on that as well. But I would like to start by doing some screen sharing. And by the way, I am kind of the district's expert in Zoom, but believe me, I'm not like a super expert. If you have used the whiteboard and I'm missing something, speak up, like help me out, help us all out, and share your experiences. So let's begin. All right. Give me 1 second to get my screen set back up again here. You should see my shared screen that shows the screenshots for whiteboard and annotating. And the first thing I do like to start with is the settings. To use annotations and whiteboards, the setting has to be on before you start your meeting. Okay, this is not one of those items that you can toggle while the meeting is going. So in your settings area of your Zoom account, in the basic meeting settings, you'll see annotation and whiteboard right next to each other. And they both need to be turned on if you want to use both. Now, something we discussed and discovered this morning is the whiteboard is quite simply a whiteboard for you, the teacher. Okay, this is your whiteboard. You can draw on it, you can use those tools. It's a white space for you to use with your class. If you want your students to be able to draw on the whiteboard, you have to turn annotation on. Annotation is basically the student experience, the student interaction experience for your whiteboard setting. Now, the trick to this is, as soon as you turn on annotation, annotation doesn't really care that it's the whiteboard that they're working with. All this gives them the right to do is mark up any screen that you share. So if annotation was on, and it is right now, you could go in and start marking up this shared screen for everybody else. And you know who figured this out first? Not the secondary kids, and not even the 4th and 5th grade kids. It was the little kids. who figured this one out, because they're in there just pressing buttons, and then they found a cool draw tool and started drawing on everything. And it really freaked the teachers out because they weren't exactly sure what was going on. So that's kind of what happened. And having been an elementary teacher, I think it's hilarious. But just, we'll talk further in depth about this, but there are a couple of settings, additional settings here. Under annotation, to even have annotation on, and right now in your toolbars, you should have a button that says annotation, unless you are on a Chromebook. This doesn't work with Chromebooks yet, okay? So if you turn on annotations, because I do have it turned on for this meeting, you will get a toolbar of drawing tools, and you can start marking up the screen like crazy. And I'm surprised it hasn't even happened yet, quite honestly, because I would have done that. Arlene, the annotation's not going to work for students. I'm looking into it to see if our Chromebooks just need an update. But the two people that were in the earlier session did not have annotate as an option. JB, you're not seeing the annotation tool. It looks like a pencil.
What type of device would it show up on?
Macs and PCs.
So is it possible that we could get actual laptops rather than Chromebooks for those of us who are struggling with Chromebooks?
Yeah, we're talking about it now. We're going through our stock to see if we can swap those out.
Okay.
It could also be that if you're not seeing it, it could either be in your toolbar under the three little dots that say more, if your toolbar is small, or you need to update your app. And Caitlin's saying it's in view options at the top of her computer. So if you go up to the Zoom app and you go up to view options, you may see it there. I do see that people are marking up the screen. So definitely people have found it. So that is something that you can do. All right. So that's annotations. But the first part we're going to talk about, I just love that everyone's drawn all over the screen. This is great. Is the whiteboard portion of this. Oh, sorry. Under annotations, there's two settings that are really important. Number one is the checkbox that says allow saving of shared screens with annotations. This just means that you can save the screen as a picture if you wanted to save the work that was done there. And the second setting is really the important one, okay? So if I had checked this box that says only the user who is sharing can annotate, because I'm sharing my screen, none of you would be able to annotate on it, only I would be able to annotate on it, okay? That's a really important setting that you need to be aware of, because you may choose to use annotation, because in the annotate area, for example, there is, whoops, that's fine. Do your thing. Thank you. There is, give me my spotlight back, spotlight. Sorry, give me 1 second. Go. Thanks. I should, again, sorry, give me 1 second. I have like a laser pointer tool. So I could be using this laser pointer tool on my shared screen to point things out. There's also an arrow tool where I think some of you have seen this, where you can be pointing certain things out. Like I need you to look here, and I need you to look here, and I need you to look here, and it has my name on it. So if this box is checked, only you, the host, can be annotating on your shared screen, and your students cannot. So that's really an important one to be aware of, okay? Now, the setting down here for Whiteboard, I'll use the annotator for that, is an on or off over here. And then the two options below are allow saving of whiteboard content or autosave whiteboard content. That's basically saying if allow saving of whiteboard content is on, then you can save it as a picture. The trick to this, and we'll get into this in just a minute, if the whiteboard setting is on, it says allow host and participants. So allow the teacher and the students to share a whiteboard during the meetings. Now you may be thinking, uh-oh, I don't want my students to share their own whiteboard. It should just be me sharing a whiteboard. That's easily solved. by not allowing your students to share a screen. So you just keep screen sharing off for everyone but you, and then they can't share a whiteboard screen, okay? I'm gonna clear everything out of here. Please clear all. There we go. All right. I'm gonna keep using this annotate tool because I'm kind of liking it. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna use it anymore. Close annotation. Okay, so I'm gonna run through a quick rundown of how to get your whiteboard going. And the way you share a whiteboard with your class is through the sharing, the new share or share screen button. If you click that, it pops up in the window that asks you to select the screen or the window that you would like to share. Pretty typical for when you're sharing a screen, but there is an option that says whiteboard. So if you select whiteboard and then click share, it's going to open up a blank whiteboard with a set of tools across the top. Now, you as the teacher or you as the person who is sharing this whiteboard will always have these tools. The only way that your students will have these tools to also contribute to this whiteboard is if you have annotations on. Okay? So if this is a whiteboard just for you, keep annotations off. And it is kind of a moot point in that if your students have Chromebooks, they're not going to be able to interact with this anyway, with those tools. Even though I do question it because the version of of Zoom should be low enough that Chromebooks can do it. So I'm going to be looking into that. But just note, keep annotations off if you want this to be just your whiteboard. And if you wanted some contribution, then turn annotations on, if that makes sense. Okay. I see people adding to this. So I did this during a meeting this morning, and this is Dave Eilers. If you know Dave Eilers, he's a fun person. And he drew a smiley face because I wanted to run through these tools. So you'll note that the annotations people are putting on here right now actually don't move with my scroll because it's kind of just on the screen here. So that is thank you. That is something. I do want to point out, I want to run through the tools really quickly before we do our own shared screen. So this is the whiteboard or annotation toolbar. And the first tool I want to point out is the select tool. So the select tool allows you to draw a selection box around something. And that selection box just grabs all the material that's within that box. And the reason that you would do that, and I know this can be kind of hard to see, you can kind of see these dots around the drawing. Those are the handlebars. And this allows you to move that content around on the whiteboard, okay? So you can actually select and move something off to the side if it's in the way to make space for something else. All right, so that's the select tool. The next tool, which I actually think will get a ton of use, is the text tool. If you click the text tool, you can draw a box that gives you a certain width to write your text in. But the easiest way to do this is just to click the text tool and click once, just one quick click, and it just drops a text box in there that you can start typing in. When we get over here to format, I'll show you how you can change the color, the size, that kind of stuff, okay? But the reason I say the text box is really important is if you've ever tried to handwrite, I know that we're kind of trying to equate your actual whiteboards in your classrooms to a digital space, and on your whiteboards in a classroom, you handwrite. If you've ever tried to handwrite off a trackpad or a mouse, it's terrible, like horrible. So if you do need to put some text in an annotation or a whiteboard, use the text tool for that, okay? The next item over is the draw. And if you click on draw, it gives you a bunch of different options. These are your line options. So thin line, thick line. I think this is pull a shape open or make a shape. Straight line with arrows, straight line with double arrows. And then you have your unfilled, I'm not sure if this is shaded, and filled shapes. So you can do rectangles and circles here. Those are just some drawing tools that are available. The next one over is the stamp, and it comes preloaded with 6 stamps. I don't know of any way to add more stamps to this, But the stamps, if you select one, all you have to do is just click on the screen and the stamp shows up. So it's just a stamp. I actually showed you the the spotlight tool right here, and you can choose between a laser pointer or this arrow thing. So it's something you can use with your students. And this was an example of that laser pointer. And then the next item over is an eraser. If you click on the eraser, you can erase drawings. If you're the host, you can erase other people's drawings. You can erase your own drawings, but it's kind of an eraser tool. And then the next one over is format. And format is where you can pick different colors for your lines or your shapes or your stamps and your text. And the colors that are available are here. If you're drawing, you can choose a different line width. If you're using text, you can choose to bold, italicize, and have some font size options. Okay. Stevie's saying, do you guys have the select and spotlight options? Maybe not, because this is my whiteboard and I would be the one that moves things around on the whiteboard. So you may not have that in annotation for your, you may not, I'm not positive. Moving off to the side, you have undo. The undo only does undoes. What do we say here? I don't even know what the right word for this, because undo is a command, so it undoes your stuff. And then redo is if you've undone it and you need to redo it, you can redo it. Clear clears your stuff off, or if you're the host, you have an option to clear everything if you want to. Okay. And then finally, if you do have the option to save the image here, you would click this, and I'll show you this in a minute where to find that image. Okay. At the bottom right of your whiteboard is a little plus symbol. So you may be thinking, okay, we filled up the whiteboard with stuff, and do I have to clear it off so I can keep going? And the answer is no. If you click this square with the plus sign on it, it gives you another page. Let's just call it another whiteboard page. And now you can scroll, forwards and backwards between your whiteboard pages. Okay, so you can just keep adding more to your whiteboard. Any questions so far? Okay. Finally, there is the save button. If you click it, it's not going to ask you where to save it. It saves it automatically, and it will give you a green confirmation that says you have saved this whiteboard. Because I'm on a Mac, Mac uses something called the Finder. I'm not exactly sure what it says on a PC, but it just says show. It'll probably say like show location or something like that. If you click the link, it will open up the folder where those files are located. So it's a quick shortcut to where those files saved, but it is in a folder. It'll save it in a folder that it makes that has the date of your meeting, the time of your meeting, the name of your meeting, and the meeting ID. So that folder is particular to that meeting, and it has the files within it that you saved. Okay. Laura, why would you want to save your whiteboard? This, if there was a lot of really good content in it, you may, and these save as picture files, you could save these and post these to Schoology for review. Would be a great resource, or you could save your whiteboards to add to a video. You could email them to a student, whatever it is, whatever situation. If it's the whiteboard is some work that you definitely want to save for the rest of your class or for review, that would be a reason to save your whiteboard. Okay, so there we go. I am now going to let you play on a whiteboard. Go for it. What we also learned is that your Zoom tools, like your stop and start video, mute, that kind of stuff, it still shows, but I've heard that you can't interact with them. Like you can't turn your camera off while your annotation tools are up, is what I've heard.
So Mark, can I clarify this, Anna?
Yeah.
The Chromebooks can't even use the stamps or annotate.
That's my understanding, is we're experiencing an issue with that. I'm gonna look into it further though.
So we should use maybe Jamboard until we know better?
You
Share
could.
Jamboard?
You could do that. You could use Google Draw. Google Draw would be the same thing too, and just use a shared Google Draw, and you could share that Google Draw screen
Okay.
through Zoom would be an easy way to do that.
Okay.
I know that like one of the teachers this morning said, well, why would I even use this? You know, all I want to do is work with my students on this board. And I said, I think there would be, honestly, the majority of teachers would choose to kind of go one directional with this. Like, I want this as my whiteboard that I'm pushing out to my students. But
You could do 4 corners and all that kind of stuff with the stamps.
yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things
Yeah.
you can do. Let me look into it. I do have a Chromebook
Okay.
here with me, and it could be just an issue of needing it to be updated. But Zoom's updating stuff all the time. So if they can figure out a way to get this into the Chrome app, that would be awesome. But for now,
Well, I think I heard that in another workshop too. So I just want to clarify. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So for those of you that are using that, so I see 3 people using the arrow right now. Only one arrow can be on the screen at once. So the second somebody else adds an arrow, it takes the previous arrow away. All right. Okay. Are we good here? Any more time to play? I will also say this. I'm going to stop the whiteboard share now. And so now that's gone. And if I turn the whiteboard share back on for this session, for this particular session, all of your stuff is still there. So it doesn't wipe it out with a new board. It keeps it together. Okay. All right. So I kind of hit annotating as we were going through that. Annotating is it's the same as the tools for whiteboarding. So just the settings are the important thing for annotation. And I'll go back to that again, which is, I just really want you to remember this thing right here. If you want to use annotations with your class, but you do not want your students to mark up your shared screen, make sure to check this box. Okay, make sure to check this box because only you, the person that is sharing their screen, can then use annotation tools. Okay, it's just a really big thing I want to share. All right, the last thing, I think I see something in the chat. Give me 1 second. Arlene, you need to go in and make these settings yourself and verify these settings for your own account. Okay, so if you are in your Zoom account, excuse me, in your profile area, if you go under personal to settings, it's under in meeting basic. And it is right here, annotation and whiteboard. To even use these 2 tools, they have to be turned on over here. And then this is the big option that I really wanted to draw everyone's attention to. Okay. All right. The last thing, and this won't take long, polling goes pretty fast, is another setting. And it's the polling setting. Polling is another one of those things that has to be on before you start your meeting. You can't toggle this once the meeting is going. So give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, sorry. And right now you all have a poll, okay? So I have created a poll and I have shared that poll with you, and I will show you what it looks like on the backside to build that poll, and I will show you what it looks like to collect that data. But right now I know that 16 of the 23 of you have voted in this poll, that's 73%. I have a timer running right now to show me 18, 19, so 82, 86% of you voted. You don't have to vote if you don't want to. I'm gonna end the poll now. So it's ended, and I can now share those results with you. Okay, so that is our quick poll in the class for of those three choices. What is your favorite color? Go ahead and stop sharing now. And I would like to take you through the process for that. So to set up polling in Zoom, there is a setting. It's also in the basic meeting settings where I was just showing you that says polling. This does need to be on. And then when you start your meeting, you will have a button in your toolbar that says polling. If you click the polling button, it will open up two windows. One of them is a web page actually, and it will say add a question for poll number 1. And over here is poll number 1. You can have multiple polls and you can put multiple questions in this poll. So for this first poll, you give the poll a name. You can choose to make it anonymous, but it really won't matter to your students. They won't see things as anonymous. The reason it's anonymous is the data it collects on the back end would anonymize that data. I also cannot say the word anemone, like sea anemone. That's one I've always screw up. So that is if you wanted to pull reports later. But you type your question in. Is it a single choice? Is it a multiple select type of choice? And then you can put your answers in. At the bottom, so here's an example of what that looks like. You can add a second question. And so you can have a number of questions here if you want. And when you're done adding those questions, you click the save button. And then once you have clicked the save button, if your poll window is still open, this is what it looks like, and it is not available to your students yet. It's just built in your polling area. Yes, Jamie, you can set up the polls before the meeting. Stevie, I don't believe that you can add pictures to this. I have not seen that. When you are ready for your students to take the poll, you click the blue button that says launch poll, and that's when it puts it out in front of them, okay? So while the poll is going, it will be a green banner across the top with a running clock. And that running clock is just to let you know how long you've had that poll open to your students, as well as some stats that say of the number of students that are in this particular class, how many have answered. So it's the raw number and the percentage. You will also see the results coming in live. So these lines will actually grow as the results are coming in. So you get to see it, they don't. When you are ready, because even if it hits 100%, the poll will not end until you end the poll. Okay, so the red button at the bottom is how you end it. You click that button and it's closed. It will now say the poll is closed, X number of people voted, and here are your results. The results that are in red are the results that got the most votes. This is not a sophisticated system. This is a very basic system, okay? So red are your poll results. And then there is a share results button. If you click that, you get a green banner indicating that you are now sharing the results with your students. They can see this. And then when you're done sharing, you just click stop sharing and it's done. And that's it. That is literally it. It's a pretty simple system. If you wanted to build this ahead of time, and I will show this to you, not here, actually, I'll show this to you in a meeting itself. Even if you've already built the meeting, well, actually you have to build the meeting. It can be a meeting you built a week ago. It could be a meeting you built 30 seconds ago and just finished building it. But let's say that this is the meeting and you're in this summary screen right here. So you're looking at your meeting summary settings and all of those things. At the bottom, I have registration on, so there's extra stuff down here. But at the bottom, you will have an option for poll. And if you click on that option for poll, it will say, you have not created any poll yet. Over to the side, it says add. And if you click on add, you get that same adding a poll window. All right, here you can give your poll a name and you can start entering questions. You can then save it and then you can come back over here and add another poll. So you can have multiple polls, and then when your meeting is going, you click that poll button and the stuff that you've set up is present. It's already preloaded and ready to go. Okay. Questions about polling?
Yeah, Mark, can you said that when you add them preloaded, then when you say add poll on your meeting, can you do them one at a time? Like what if I wanted to do a poll at the beginning of class and the poll at the end of class?
Yep. You select, when you go to your poll button, you select the poll that you want to share.
Okay. Okay. And can I ask a whiteboard question?
Sure.
So can the students use the whiteboard while we're in class? And I'm thinking like when I'm in class and I give the kids whiteboards and I ask them a question, they write up their answer on the whiteboard and show us. Can they do that?
Well, probably not on a Chromebook yet. Let me look into that. But if they could do it on a Chromebook, the settings you would want would be that your students can share their screen and that there's simultaneous screen sharing. That's another setting.
Okay.
So if there was simultaneous screen sharing, then you could have all of your students sharing their own whiteboard screen at the same time.
That would be really rad.
Yeah. Remember, we didn't buy Chromebooks with this in mind.
I know. Thank you.
All right, there it is. Arlene has the question, sort of, that was asked in the previous and is typically asked in this. She said, if I add a poll to a meeting code I use all year, will I have to take it off, or is it just a launch it or not? It will be there, but you don't have to launch it. It's your choice when you want to launch it. Now, the other question is, for secondary teachers, if I am going to use the same poll in multiple periods and I have multiple meetings set up for that, is there a way that I don't have to recreate the poll over and over again that's the same poll for each one of those classes? I don't know the definitive answer to this, but this is what I would try. Well, actually, we're going to try it right now. I've got you. Let's just do this. Test poll. Test. 1, 2, 3. I'm saving this as a poll. Okay, so you can now see that I have a test poll in here. I can save a meeting that you have set up as a template. And when you save a meeting as a template,
Mark, I think you need to share your screen.
oh, I am so sorry. I'm so used to sharing my screen. Okay, let me back up on this. You can all see it now, right? You can see the meeting summary? Okay. So I quickly made a test poll. You can see that's listed down here. I can edit it, I can delete it, I can do these things. Now, anytime you have a meeting that's built, you can save that meeting as a template. So all you have to do is select that template from a list of your templates and all of those settings are there. And our suspicion is that it would save your poll as well. So I'm going to save that. And if I go back over here to meetings and I schedule a meeting, I can select test template and save. And the poll is there. So if you build one meeting template with the poll in it, you can just keep using that template and then you just change the settings ever so slightly. Okay? All right, I crammed a lot in there. We went for 40 minutes, just like the last one. So make note that we went for 40 minutes today. And then record that in your calendar, wherever you're gonna take notes for this. Christy, if you're still here, I'll reflect your sentiment on behalf of all the other teachers about getting time into Skyward. And yeah, if you have any questions about polling or breakout rooms or any of the Zoom stuff, just shoot me an email. If you are nervous about the beginning of school because you didn't use Zoom much last year or at all, and you want to practice, I highly suggest getting a teaching partner or a peer to practice with. If you can't get somebody, you can always shoot me an email, and if I'm free, I'll hop on a session with you and work with you through that. So if there's nothing else, go enjoy the sunshine.
Hey, Mark, I have a question.
Sure.
So as far as practicing, can we practice with somebody that's not an OSD student or staff? Can we just?
Yeah, yep. Just make sure that when you set up your meeting, because you want it to be your meeting, right? because you want to be the host. When you are in your meeting setup, let me share my screen real quick. Make sure that your authentication option is turned off.
Okay.
That opens it up to anybody to join your meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Mark, did you see my question in the chat?
Maybe.
I asked, if you don't set up a template for your Zoom meeting, do you have to redo your settings, you know, the ones on the left every time? Because it seemed like they were saved to me.
No. The settings on the left, these
Yeah.
settings here
Yeah.
are permanent. Like you make
Okay,
these
that's what I
changes
thought.
and they set. What happens though is when you build meetings like this meeting here, even though I have default settings, I sometimes don't choose my default settings based on the audience. I want to flip away from a specific default setting that I have.
Okay.
So
Depending on who your audience is, right?
correct. And if I know I'm going to be doing this meeting over and over and over again, I'll just save it as a template. So those settings are there.
Okay.
And all I have to do is change the time and the date.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Everybody's just hanging out. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll shut her down. But if you have a question, go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I've got one for you, Mark.
Okay.
So it looks like it might be easier to use Jamboard instead of the whiteboard in Zoom. Is that what I'm seeing?
It could be. Not a lot of people are very versed with Jamboards. But if that's something you're familiar with, I would certainly say use something that you are. Like I said, if I didn't know anything about Jamboards and I was not happy with the Zoom whiteboard feature, I would probably use Google Draw, is open up a Google Draw and collaboratively share that with my class. That's something you could certainly do.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. I will see you all later. Have a good afternoon.